Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another Tuesday Cruiser Chat with Otram. Um, Same format as usual. I don't have anything planned, just whatever you guys want to chat about. And yes, Jim, you did beat me. I had the chat streaming, but hadn't started it live yet. And my laptop was starting to get warm, so I went around back to plug the fan in. So hopefully the fan's not too loud and y'all can't hear it on the microphone. Hey Logan, how's it going? Trying to think. Working on a big batch of FJ62 stainless exhaust this week while Crash is on vacation. It makes it nice because I can just stay on the one side of the shop and just build exhaust in peace. And hopefully this will be the last set that I hand build, and I'll be able to take these when I take the 80 series to get scanned for mandrel bending. I just went brain dead. But yeah, so that's about all that's going on at the shop. And Jim said that when he was going over Monarch Pass, stopped to check things over with the truck and noticed that the trans cooler was cold. I'm not sure. I've never reached in and felt the trans cooler. Because it runs, if I'm picturing it right, it comes out of the trans, runs through the radiator, and then through the cooler. So I would think it would be up for radiator temp. I know the newer, 100 series transmissions, the autos, have a thermostat in them. I don't know if the 80 series does or not. If it has a thermostat in it, it may just not have opened. But after going up a pass, I would expect it to be warm. And hey, how's it going, David? Your cruiser is still at the shop. Yeah, going up with a lot of downshifting, I would expect the trans cooler to be warm. But maybe the fan's just pulling enough air through it and it's happy doing its thing. I've never looked into it before. Hey, what's going on, Steve? Everybody's tuning in today. Oh, you're all good. It was funny, I texted Crash after I talked to you Friday night, and he thought I left your keys hidden, and I thought he left your keys hidden. And I ended up going down there 6 o'clock Saturday morning on my way down to Madison. And my landlord was there working on the apartment upstairs. It was just super strange being there that early in the morning and running into somebody else at the shop. But yeah, your truck's not in the way. There's plenty of space right now, so you're all good. What kind of truck are you hearing the rattle on? You may hear a little bit of rattle as the timing chain tensioner comes up to pressure on an 80 series. On an 80 series timing chain motor. On a 2UZ, you might hear a little bit of rattle in the cam phasers if it's a newer VVTi motor. And there's no real mileage required for an overhaul on a 2F. It just depends on how the truck was treated. If the truck was run into the ground, it could be as early as 50,000 miles. If it's treated well, 500,000. And to Steven, I don't know what the final tally is going to be on the 80 exhaust. The price might be changing soon. Since I'm going to see about getting the parts mandrel bent so that I don't have to hand fit everything anymore. but I'm not sure if that's going to make it go up or down. So stay tuned. I should know in like the next couple of weeks. And yeah, if it's an LX450, yeah, I guess it'd be kind of normal-ish to hear a little bit of rattle until the timing chain tensioner builds pressure. I'd run a factory oil filter if you're not, because they've got the anti-drain back valve to kind of help hold some oil up there. And the Logan Driveline Noise is really hard to diagnose over the interwebs. My guess is you've got a drive shaft that's not happy with the new angle. It was on the cusp of being bad. Like you've got a U-joint going out. And now with the lift, it just doesn't like it with the new angle. But it's hard to say without seeing it and hearing it. And I don't know any good upholstery people. Yeah, we don't mess with upholstery at the shop, so I've never really gone looking for anybody to do it. And I guess, yeah, fan belt being loose on a 1FZ could cause a rattle, like if it's slapping against that weird idler pulley. I'd never thought of that. Ah, yeah, greetings down to Venezuela. I have yet to make it to Venezuela. I've been next door to Colombia, but not Venezuela yet. It is on the list. But yeah, and back to Logan having a noise, I'd climb under the truck, like put one tire at each end in the air to get the driveline bind off, and then just start shaking things and see if you can find anything loose. And to JT, I am not sure. I've never paid that much attention to the operation of the 80 series T cases, beyond just making sure they go through all their modes after we rebuild them. I think it does, but I'm not positive. And to Logan, if you unload the joints, you should be able. And to Chemo, no, Mrs. Otram does not like Land Cruisers. She thinks they are the stupidest thing in the whole world. Yeah, she rocks a Prius. Yeah, she doesn't understand Land Cruisers. She doesn't get off-roading. But she's cool with me doing what makes me happy. So I work on Land Cruisers. It's my understanding that you need the lock switch to be able to lock it in high range. And that it goes auto, or it locks when you put it in low range. But I could be wrong, because I've never messed with it all that much. Yes, she's got the baby blue Prius with the NPR sticker on the back. It can be horrible to find in parking lots. Metal on metal ping when you go from drive to reverse. A lot of times we see it as being the slip joint in the drive shafts. The splines get wobbled out, and as you go drive to reverse or reverse to drive, they switch directions and you hear it ping and it resonates in the drive shaft. But that would be my guess. Yeah, I drove her Prius around all of July while she was up in Boston, and I got to admit, it was so nice only having to fill that thing up like every 2 weeks, where I fill my Subaru up weekly. And the AC works in her Prius. To Brian, it depends on what you're going to do with it. Like if you're just going like stock head gasket replacement, no plans of turbo or supercharging, and using the factory head gasket, I would just use the factory head bolts. We've used tons of them and have never had an issue out of them. We've done a couple trucks lately that are probably getting Joey's turbo kit, and those have been getting multi-layered steel head gaskets and ARP head studs. So yeah, I guess it depends on what you're going to do with it. If you're just keeping it as a stock engine, I would just use factory gasket, factory bolts. If you're looking for more power, metal head gasket and studs. And a Logan, I guess technically you can buy a new slip joint, but it only comes as an entire drive shaft assembly, because it's a welded in piece. We've been doing a lot of them on 80s in the past probably like 2 years. When we cleaned up and we're moving everything to the new side of the shop, I think we found like 15 to 20 drive shafts that had sloppy slip joints in them. Which one of those became the front drive shaft for the Shady 80 since it did not come with a shaft. And I don't care if it makes noise. It could also be drive flanges at the front axle, like where the berths go to the hubs. But seeing as how it came on when you lifted it, I would guess more slip joint, U-joint, something like that related. I have not done that grommet on a cruiser. I did it on a Tacoma. It wasn't horrible on the Tacoma, but that Tacoma also wasn't stock. It had been solid axle swapped and didn't have a factory lower shaft coming out of the column, which made it, I think, a little bit easier to undo and get out of the way. But I don't think I've ever pulled the steering column out of an 80 series. I've had it out of a 100 series, and that wasn't bad. And I've had it out of a 60 series, and that wasn't bad. So I would assume an 80 series wouldn't be bad, but I've never actually done it. See, there's your answer. At least somebody on here has done that job. If your trip meter stopped working, I don't have a good suggestion. I'm assuming like the speedometer still works. Because if your speedometer is still working, then you're still getting the input, and then it's likely, something wrong in the trip meter itself, which would probably mean new cluster. Unless you were went in there and took everything apart and tried to, figure out what was wrong. But I've never dug that far into it. I haven't had a salvage cluster to go into and try to take it apart. That it didn't matter if I ruined it or not. I've never gone looking for a new cluster. And the problem with getting a used cluster is your mileage, like your odometer's not going to match. And to Brian's question, we've reused tons and tons of OEM bolts. We do the measure them to make sure they're not necked down. And, if they're all good, we'll chase the block holes to make sure everything's clean and just put them back together, as Toyota recommended. Best of the best would probably be to use new bolts or new studs, but we've never run into an issue reusing the factory ones. And thanks, Dave. We've got green screen now, and I need to figure out something more exciting to do with it than just the O-Tram logo. But that's all I've got so far. Yeah, and no problem. I don't know that I've ever bought a new Toyota head bolt. We've always just, been able to reuse the old ones. There is no current paint guy. The guy that I really dug before was named Dallas, but he closed up his shop and went to work for his dad. And I have not found a replacement, which we get asked all the time for somebody to do paint work, and I haven't found somebody yet. And to Dave, that's weird. Usually the OEM gaskets make everything all nice and happy. We've had a few where like the manifold was extra pitted or like a cat flange was extra pitted. And on those we had a tube of Bosel muffler cement, and it looked like concrete in a like a big toothpaste tube. And you just squeeze some on the flange and then assemble everything, and it, cures up rock hard. It's not the, greatest fix of all time, but for those, like, mild leaks on a semi-rusted out flange, it did a pretty good job of fixing it up. Oh, thank you. Yep, still running. I ran a 4-mile road race on Saturday, and got my best times yet. I was still like middle to back of the pack, but really good times for me. And then my wife talked me into a 6-mile hike directly after that, so I was dead on Sunday. I want to say body fat's like 13%. I've still got some in the middle that I need to get rid of. The exhaust manifold bolts on the 80, well, they're actually studs. They're not super terrible to deal with. Take the two heat shield things off, and then just you can easily get at all the studs, except for the very back one is kind of tricky. But if you hose everything down with Freol, a couple of times before you really get in there, usually they come apart fairly well. How low is low on your oil? Because at 320,000, you're going to, you're gonna burn some, and if it's less than a quart or so, you're still within factory spec for a lot of the new engines. So I wouldn't be super concerned. Yeah, I didn't hike with a super heavy pack this weekend, just my camera pack with lunch in it. So yeah, no super core work there. And Art, by taking your drive shafts apart for thorough re-grease, I'm assuming you mean like you're gonna pop the slip joints apart and clean them out. Just mark like a straight line, across the joint so that you know which way they were phased when you put them back together. Because if you get them out of whack, you'll get vibrations from the U-joints not being phased properly. That, and don't over grease the slip joints. Like the drive shaft guy we used to use, always said if you've got it apart, just, slather grease on the joint itself, put it together. Don't pump it, full through the Zerk fitting. So like, when we, lube them on trucks, we'll put like a pump or two in at the slip joint, not pump them till they're full. And a Logan, it depends on the vintage, but I want to say around $500, front or rear. And there's some differences, but they all seem to be in that range. And that's what we've been doing more of lately, because by the time you buy two U-joints, by the time you do two U-joints and spend the labor of putting them in, you're getting close to a new drive shaft. And can I recommend a torque wrench for a reasonable price? I've been real happy. I bought a Precision Instruments off Amazon. It's one of the clickers, but it's I can't think of the real name for them. It's not like the clicker where you turn the handle up and down. It's got a little wheel on the side and a needle gauge to set the torque. I've been really happy with it, and it was like $120, $130. And they're the guys that make the Snap-on ones, that Snap-on sells for like $500. I've also got a CDI dial type that I really like. And I've got a couple of Snap-on digitals, which the Snap-on digitals are way overkill for the home mechanic. But we've got the Precision Instruments. I bought it, just for torquing lug wrenches or torquing lug nuts, and I really like it for that. I've got way too many torque wrenches. I think last time we counted them all up, we had like 7 or 8. Yeah, but if the engine was overhauled at 75,000 and then it made it to 320, that's still a pretty good span. If it was just overhauled 75,000 ago, that's a bit soon to be burning that much oil. The $10 ones from Harbor Freight, I'm always scared of because you never know if they're actually set accurately. And if they're going to stay accurate. Because like a torque wrench is only accurate in the middle of its range, which is why I've got so many. I've got, lower torque wrenches, medium torque wrenches, high torque wrenches. But the really cheap ones doing smaller fasteners can be sketchy and you can break them. Conventional oil is fine. That's what the engines were built around. That's what they're spec'd with. The modern conventional oil, isn't the conventional oil of 20, 30 years ago. I mean, it's decent oil with all the new specs and additive packages, except for having taken zinc out. But the modern motors, like the 4.7, don't really need the zinc. I run synthetic in all of my junk, but the only reason I do that is because I'm super lazy about changing the oil in my own stuff. And, my wife never tells me when her oil is due, so they ended up getting, extended out longer than they should. And right or wrong, I feel a little bit better about using synthetic for that. And to Brian, I've actually got, I guess technically I've got 2 precision torque wrenches. One of them is a big 3/4 drive that goes up to 600 foot-pounds, and that's the one we use for the crankshaft pulley bolt. And then I've got a smaller one that goes to 250 foot-pounds that we use for lug nuts and stuff. But both of them are nice. It's the style where there's a thumb dial on the side to set torque instead of having to twist the handle. Because the ones where you spin the handle to set torque, you have to spin them all the way back to 0 every time you're not using them, or they go out of accuracy. The beam style clickers, you can leave them set at whatever torque, and they don't lose the accuracy. So the big one stays set at 306 foot-pounds, and the half-inch drive one stays set at 85 for doing lug nuts. Yeah, synthetic gets wicked expensive, in cruiser motors. Yeah, I don't see a problem with running conventional in it. Again, I would be leery of... I'd be leery of anything that you want any form of accuracy out of from Harbor Freight. I've got some stuff from them that's decent. I've got, one of their 12-inch disc sanders, their bandsaw, stuff like that works fine. Anything that you need any kind of accuracy out of, I don't know that it's going to be reliable at the price point they're selling things at. And when you're doing engine fasteners and things like that, you want it to be accurate. No brake fluid going through the LSPV. I don't think you can take that apart to clean it, although I've never tried. How do you know, like, you're getting no brake fluid through it? Like, is it not coming out of the bleeder? Or are you not getting, pressure to the rear brakes? Because it could be that just your bleeder is clogged. And in that case, you can take the bleeder out, and clean out the passages in it and put it back in. But if you can take the bleeder all the way out, push the pedal down and nothing comes out, you've either got something clogging up the LSPV or, something upstream of it. In which case, you're probably looking at, a new valve. Because even if you could take it apart to clean it, likely it's not going to go back together and work again. But I've never actually tried to take one apart to know for sure. You guys want to go outside? Yeah, I've never run into an LSPV, sticking, seizing, clogging. I've had them leak, but I've never had them not get fluid to the rear brakes. You could also, it could be one of the rear rubber lines going down to the brakes. If those deteriorate on the inside, they can make like flappers, like on the inside of the hose, and keep fluid from moving. Like I would crack the inlet fittings to the LSPV, pump the brakes, see if you're getting fluid back that far, and just keep moving down the line until you get fluid to see where you've got the restriction. I had a couple of ones on the timing chain cover that I just did that felt funky going back in. They all made it to 15. But I had a couple that didn't feel like they were going to come up to 15. And W.S. Walton, thanks for the tip. I really appreciate it. It's always awesome when people hit the money button at the bottom. And I haven't had my torque wrenches recalibrated recently. It's probably been a year. The Snap-on truck that comes around has a tester on it where you can, set them, and it's got a dial gauge that checks it. But yeah, other than that, we've done the, put two of them back to back and, make sure they both read the same. But that's not the super accurate way of doing it. Yeah, if you've got fluid at the two inlets, but no fluid at the outlet, I would guess that the inside of the LSPV itself is corroded. But I've never actually seen one do that. Huh. Yeah, I've never heard an 80 series brake booster make a whooping noise, but I've had it on, I think it was an old mini truck, did it. I didn't even think about that for your 80. And to John, I try my hardest to never, ever, 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 ever touch South American spec Land Cruisers. Far and away, they are the biggest piles of crap ever to grace the parking lot. Um, they're just terrible. I wouldn't recommend anybody ever buy a South American spec cruiser. They use them as work trucks down there, and by the time they're selling them off to come up here, they've just, had the absolute snot kicked out of them. And they get a shiny paint job on them, and sold up here, and everything is wrong, and it's just, wrong parts, things butchered together, welded in wrong, just absolutely terrible. Coolant Flush, if you can look at your coolant, if it's all brown and funky, then it's probably, time for a flush. Most often you can get away with just a drain and fill. Unless there's something else going on, like it's never been changed and it's just disgusting. I don't have any 6-point box wrenches. I've got some gear wrench stuff that's 12-point, and it's good quality. It's my snap-ons are my favorite, and my Matco spline drives. But yeah, I don't have any 6 points. My sockets are all 6-point, but none of my wrenches are. I hate a 6-point box wrench, just because you don't have that much flexibility in angles on them. And I'm not seeing rust picks or a link to rust picks. Unless I'm just looking at things completely wrong. But that reminds me, somebody sent me rust picks for their 80 in my email, and I totally forgot to open it. I need to go back and do that and check theirs. To Maxwell, we don't do any. I don't have a good answer for you. I've just never gotten into automatic transmission troubleshooting because I never wanted to rebuild them. We just let them go to the Autotrans shop, since they're the experts and can usually figure it out a lot faster than we can. And to Art, yeah, 12 points are awesome for stripping out bolts. Matco has some spline drive 12 points that are actually awesome and will grip better than my 6 points. But they are not cheap. I want to say it's like 400 and something for the set, like the 10 to 19 millimeter. And to Steven, shoot me an email to remind me about your brake lines, because I don't know that one off the top of my head, and I still need to write your knuckle rebuild estimate, because I did not get a chance to write any estimates over the weekend. And to John, if you go into it knowing that you're going to have to replace every system on the truck, you might be able to find something okay, but the ones we've seen, they're just crazy. It'll be like frames welded together, stuff welded together at the shop that has like juice containers for spring bushings, like just slivers of it shoved in the bushing holes. It's nuts what you see. We had one, we took the upper hose off to do a thermostat housing, and it didn't actually have a thermostat in it. Instead, they had just shoved old U-joint caps in one of the radiator hoses to slow the flow down. And I'll be right back. Scratched a bug bite on my arm and started bleeding everywhere. Hey Alex, how's it going? I have helped with stretching a 40 series, but I haven't done it in eons. Aqualoo has a 4-door 40 series tub that goes on an 80 series chassis. And that would get you, fuel injection, 80 series axles, good steering, and all that jazz. Yeah, the stretching the stock tub and frame is, it's quite a bit of work. It's not horrible because, it's all straight panels. But an aluminum tub would probably be easier, and I think Aqualoo has several options for that. Yeah, just and to Steven, just bring the truck by and we can take a look at it and see what's happening. We're likely gonna have both of the tall lifts full next week. I'm gonna have Crash pulling a motor on one of them, and then I'm going to be doing a 200 series suspension, e-lockers, and sliders, I think, on the other tall lift. But the short lift will be open. You just can't get a super awesome view of the underside on the short lift because you can't get all the way under. And I'm coming down your way in October, Alex. We're coming down to Asheville for our anniversary. Yeah, if you look at Redline Land Cruisers, they've done a bunch of aluminum 40 tubs on 80 chassis. There's a local guy that's got one that Redline built. And I haven't taken a super close look at it, but it looks pretty awesome, parking lot view. One of the local shops here has a stretched 40 tub on a stretched 40 frame that I think Aqualoo made the stretched 40 frame that they've been building for the last couple of years. It is a project we would take on. It would likely be a very expensive project, but it's not something that I would say no to. And Alex, the handheld scanner that I use in the 100 series brake video, it is a Bosch Vitronics MasterTech. I've never tried using the regular MasterTech. From what I understand, the MasterTech itself is the same. It's just the cards that you change. But yeah, I lucked into mine. It was an actual Toyota Lexus branded one. And yeah, it happened to have the the Toyota Lexus card already in it, but I've never used the generic MasterTech with their version, like Bosch's Toyota card in it. So I don't know if they work exactly the same. And thanks, John. I appreciate it. And yeah, to Richie, the Redline 40 on the 80 chassis looks awesome. The one that Justin built that came this way to one of our local guys, I'm supposed to see it sometime soon to do some minor tweaking on. But it's got to stay, for however he's got it insured, it's got to stay inside the shop all times. So I need to have space in the shop to get the thing indoors the whole time. Cool, and yeah, John, just let me know. We can work something out. And Alex, another way to go is you can get Drew Technologies makes a Mongoose cable, and you can get the Toyota Mongoose cable and use that with TechStream. And there's, like, you can get bootleg versions of TechStream. I haven't used them because I've always been sketched out by them. But even using, like, Toyota's factory TechStream, you can get, I think, a 2-day subscription to it for, like, $65 now. It used to be 40 something, but they raised the price. But yeah, using something like a Mongoose cable and Drew Tech is also an option. And if you keep an eye out on eBay, sometimes the Toyota MasterTechs come up cheap. I only paid $250 for mine. You know, it's got a little bit of weird pixelation in the corner of the screen, but it's nothing that makes it unusable. And yeah, he's got some kind of weird insurance policy where it has to stay inside at all times. Like, it can't stay out on my parking lot. And like right now, we've already got 2 trucks that have to be inside all the time just because they don't have hardtops of any kind on them. So we can't leave them out in the rain. So his has got to wait until I get one of those finished up so we can get those gone and have another inside storage space. Back to Alex. The one nice thing about the Toyota MasterTech is some of the early OBD1 stuff works on them. Like the early 80s you can use. Yeah, I really like Joey's new brake line kit. I just bought some different stainless brake lines for the Shady 80, and I really wish I had waited and gotten Joey's because they look awesomer. Everything Joey makes is awesome, though. Ooh, and I heard apparently my customer that's getting his turbo kit is in the next batch that's coming out. So I think I'm getting his truck mid-September to start the engine rebuild. So I should have video fodder for the turbo kit. Maybe late September, which will be really cool. I'm very excited to drive a Turbo 80. I'm going to have to check out this VirtualBox text stream as well. Luckily, between the Snap-on scanner and the MasterTech, and TextStream, I'm usually covered, but I hate paying the TextStream price when I have to pay it. If the AC's not blowing cold at idle but works fine at cruising speed, you may be just low enough on refrigerant that you're not building enough pressure differential at idle. I would have somebody check the AC pressures. That's my best guess off the top of my head. And Devikin, I've gotten the factory oil pump cover bolts, and then I've also gotten them from, it's like phhkit.com or something like that. It's the guy that sells the silicone PHH kits. He's got a Torx head version. I've gotten those. I haven't tried hardware store Allen head just because we don't have a hardware store that carries a decent supply of metric stuff around here. And to Maxwell, Wits End. I don't remember what his full website is, but it's Wits. If you search Wits End Land Cruiser, you'll find Joey's site. He's got tons and tons of really awesome Land Cruiser stuff. It would be super awesome if Joey sent me a turbo kit, but Dude Man's gotta make money, and he's not gonna make money sending people free turbo kits. But yeah, I will be happy living vicariously through my customers that can afford turbo kits. I would doubt it's the fan clutch. I mean, it could be, but I would doubt it. I would bet more that it's low refrigerant levels, and you're not getting actual pressure differential until you spin it up more. I did get Joey's new power steering pump gear holding wrench a couple of weeks ago. That thing is super nice. And of course, I haven't had a power steering pump to check it out on, but it's super awesome. Like everything Joey sells. I just need to get the Shady 80 running. I finally got the exhaust built for it, but it's not actually on it since I'm going to take it to see about getting the mandrel bent as one piece. But once I put that back on, theoretically I can start daily driving the thing and seeing what else it needs. Yeah, I mean, like 99% of the time when we see AC doing weird things, it's almost always that it's just low on refrigerant. Yeah, I really like his paperclip solution. Um, I've done that cooler, but without his fancy AN fittings and the push lock, a couple of times, and it's a really nice solution to replacing the paperclip, since the paperclip costs so much money. Um, um, on the 100 series, it will bleed. It will bleed the ABS system with the Master Tech. And it's funny, the Master Tech actually has more options when brake bleeding 100 than TechStream does. Which is weird. I've never tried it on the 80 series. I don't think it will, because I don't think the 80 series the 80 series ABS is tied in through the diagnostic port. I think it's separate. And the chemo, yeah, if it's low, it's leaking. But the hoses have some permeability, so your AC's always slowly leaking. It's just usually leaking enough that you don't see it for a couple of years. And the paperclip, if you look at the very front cross member on your 80, like under the radiator, there's like a loop of steel tubing. That's your power steering cooler. Everybody calls it the paperclip because it looks kind of like a paperclip. And the stupid thing's like $500 and a real pain to replace because it doesn't really fit back between the frame and the body without lifting the front core support up off the frame some. So Joey's got a like an aluminum extruded cooler that bolts in the same place and has upgraded lines and just looks super clean. Yeah, and I've never seen one of the ABS actuator testers in person. I bid on one on eBay years ago, but did not win it. So we do the super ghetto, find a gravel parking lot, get up to speed, and slam the brakes to activate the ABS that way. Oh, I'm assuming that the transjack helped with getting the fuel tank back in. And if so, that's awesome. And to Dave, there's not a way to replace the fuel filler tube without lifting the body with keeping the fuel filler tube intact. It just will not fit. If you cut the tube into two pieces, you can get it out and get a new one in, but you have to cut the new one in half and then join it back together with metric fuel line or fuel filler neck hose. But yeah, otherwise I think you have to lift the body. It is not a fun job. I've actually been kicking around the idea of making like the lower portion, like the tank to fender well portion at a stainless as a replacement, since it seems that lower portion is the part that always rots out. I just haven't had time to do all the mock-up yet. Cool. You have a great week too, Vicken. And I just noticed that it's 7. The canister behind the battery on 93 FZJ is a charcoal canister. It's part of your emissions system, and it could be causing vacuum leaks. If those hoses are cracked, or fuel vapor leaks. And John says, looked at a 96 weird knock only between 1500 and 2000 RPM. That's a weird one. It could be something engine internal knocking. I've also seen power steering pumps with either chipped vanes or chipped teeth on the drive gear make weird knocking noises only in certain RPM ranges. But it's a weird one without actually hearing it. Yeah, and if you're hearing hissing while it's running, you've probably got a vacuum leak, and I'd just, replace the hoses, and you should be good. And to Dave, I've never tried lifting the body off to do it. I've always cut them. Granted, I think I've only done 2. But it never seemed worthwhile to try to pick the 80 rear end up high enough to clear that. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and jump off of here for the evening so I can get the dogs fed and get dinner started. But thanks to everybody that tuned in for chat. It always makes it fun when a bunch of people tune in with different questions. But yeah, so thanks for everybody that's tuned in. If you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button on the channel, and then you'll get updates when the new videos are coming out. And if you really dig the videos and the chats, check out our Patreon link down below. We always appreciate the support. And I started this new thing at the bottom where I'm scrolling our patrons as kind of a thank you, like credit thing. But yeah, everybody have a great week, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Thanks again. I'll catch you guys later.